At Riverside High, the air buzzed with energy as students poured into the school for the start of a new year. Lockers slammed, friends exchanged hugs, and conversations filled the hallways with a cacophony of laughter and excitement. In the midst of it all was Emily Carter, walking quietly with her head bowed, avoiding eye contact. She clutched the straps of her second-hand backpack, the faded material a sharp contrast to the brand-new designer bags carried by her peers. Emily's hand-me-down clothes, mismatched and a little too big, made her an easy target. But it wasn't just her appearance that drew attention. Emily was deaf and nonverbal. While her classmates gossiped and called out to each other, she moved silently through the crowd, her eyes scanning for a clear path to her first class. For Emily, blending in was a daily struggle. The taunts began almost immediately. Lila Hendricks, the queen bee of Riverside High, leaned against her locker with a smirk as Emily passed by. "Hey, Emily," she called out, her voice dripping with sarcasm. Emily didn't react, her inability to hear the jeering tone sparing her the initial sting. But Lila wasn't deterred. She nudged her group of friends, and together they erupted into mocking laughter. "Does she even know how to dress?" one of Lila's friends snickered. "That sweater looks like it's from a thrift store." "It probably is," Lila replied with a dramatic eye roll. "Seriously, does she ever look in a mirror?" The group burst into laughter as Emily quickened her pace, her cheeks burning. Though she couldn't hear their words, the hostile stares and sneering smiles were enough to convey their cruelty. She ducked her head lower, willing herself to disappear as she made her way to the library, the one place in school where she felt safe. The library was Emily's refuge. The quiet atmosphere and the comforting scent of old books made it a sanctuary from the chaos and judgment of the outside world. She spent most of her free time there, sketching in her notebook or reading about the great artists she admired. Emily loved to paint. It was her way of expressing everything she couldn't say aloud. Her sketchbook was filled with vivid landscapes, intricate portraits, and abstract designs that reflected her emotions. Today, however, even the library couldn't ease the ache in her chest. Emily sat at her usual corner table, her fingers tracing the edges of a blank page in her sketchbook. Her mind replayed the sneers and laughter she had faced in the hallway, the memories pressing down on her like a weight. She didn't understand why people were so cruel. She had never done anything to hurt anyone. All she wanted was to be left alone, to exist without being a target for their ridicule. But no matter how hard she tried to stay invisible, the bullies always seemed to find her. What her classmates didn't know was that Emily's life outside of school was vastly different from what they assumed. She wasn't just the poor, weird girl they saw at Riverside High. Emily was the daughter of Jonathan Carter, a billionaire tech mogul and the founder of Carter Innovations, a company that had revolutionized the tech industry. Her father's name was synonymous with innovation and success, his face a fixture on the covers of business magazines. Yet Emily kept her family's wealth a closely guarded secret. Jonathan Carter had always been a humble man, despite his immense success. After losing his wife to a sudden illness when Emily was just 6 years old, he had raised her to value kindness and empathy above all else. He wanted her to grow up grounded, unspoiled by the privilege their wealth afforded. That's why he had chosen to send her to a regular public school instead of an elite private academy. He believed that experiencing the real world would teach Emily resilience and help her understand the struggles of others. But Jonathan had underestimated the cruelty that came with high school. Emily's classmates didn't see her as the daughter of a billionaire or a talented artist. They saw her as an easy target, a quiet, awkward girl who couldn't defend herself against their taunts. At home, Emily found solace in her father's unwavering support. Their sprawling mansion was a stark contrast to the second-hand clothes she wore to school, its grand halls filled with artwork and family photos that told the story of a life built on hard work and love. Jonathan often spent his evenings with Emily in their home art studio, encouraging her to express herself through her paintings. One evening, as Emily sat at her easel, blending shades of blue and green for a seascape, her father entered the room. He watched her work in silence for a moment before placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Rough day at school?" he asked, his voice filled with concern. Emily nodded, her eyes welling with tears. She set down her paintbrush and turned to him, her hands moving swiftly as she signed, "They don't understand me. They think I'm weird and ugly." Jonathan knelt beside her, his expression soft but firm. "Emily, listen to me," he said, signing as he spoke. "You are so much more than they can see. You're talented, kind, and strong. Their words don't define you." Emily's tears spilled over, but her father's words brought a measure of comfort. She nodded, wiping her cheeks, and returned to her painting. In the swirls of color on the canvas, she found a way to channel her emotions, a way to turn her pain into beauty. Despite her struggles, Emily continued to attend school every day, determined not to let the bullies win. She focused on her art, her studies, and the hope that one day, people would see her for who she truly was. What she didn't know was that her resilience and talent were about to change everything, not just for her, but for everyone who had underestimated her. The relentless bullying reached a boiling point one fateful afternoon during lunch. Emily sat alone at her usual spot in the cafeteria, a corner table near the windows where she could look outside and escape into her thoughts. She had her sketchbook open, her pencil moving swiftly across the page as she worked on a portrait of a girl standing in a field of wildflowers. Drawing was her way of coping, a small bubble of peace in an otherwise hostile environment. But peace was hard to find at Riverside High. Lila Hendricks and her clique spotted Emily from across the room and immediately zeroed in on her. With their trays in hand, they strutted over, their laughter loud enough to draw the attention of nearby students. "Look at her," Lila sneered, her voice dripping with mockery. "Sitting there all alone, drawing her little pictures. What are you working on, Emily? A masterpiece?" The girls erupted into laughter as Emily kept her eyes down, her fingers tightening around her pencil. She couldn't hear their words, but their body language and expressions made their intentions clear. Her heart raced as she tried to ignore them, her hands trembling as she continued to draw. Lila leaned over the table, her perfectly manicured nails tapping against the sketchbook. "Let's see what you've got," she said, snatching the book before Emily could react. Emily's hands shot up in protest, her face pleading as she signed, "Please give it back." But Lila only laughed. "Oh, look! She's signing again. Isn't that adorable? Too bad we don't speak, weirdo." Lila flipped through the pages of the sketchbook, her expression turning smug. "What is this? A bunch of ugly doodles? No wonder you don't talk, you don't have anything interesting to say." One of Lila's friends grabbed the book and tore out a page, holding it up for the cafeteria to see. "Hey, everyone! Look at this. Emily's trying to be an artist." The sound of ripping paper pierced Emily's heart as tears welled in her eyes. She reached out, desperate to retrieve her sketchbook, but the girls only laughed harder, tossing it back and forth like a toy. The other students watched in silence, some with pity, others with amusement. No one stepped in to help. The humiliation was too much to bear. Emily grabbed her things and ran out of the cafeteria, her tears blurring her vision. She didn't stop until she reached the art room, her sanctuary, where she collapsed onto a stool and buried her face in her hands. Emily spent the rest of the day avoiding everyone, her heart aching from the cruelty she had endured. When she got home, her father immediately noticed her swollen eyes and slumped shoulders. Jonathan knelt in front of her, his face etched with concern. "Emily," he signed gently, "what happened?" Through trembling hands, Emily recounted the incident in the cafeteria, her emotions spilling over as she described how they had mocked her, torn her drawings, and humiliated her in front of everyone. Jonathan listened quietly, his jaw tightening as she finished. He wrapped her in a protective hug, stroking her hair as she sobbed into his shoulder. "That's enough," he said softly but firmly, signing each word. "No more. They don't get to treat you this way." Emily pulled back, her expression wary. "What do you mean?" Jonathan's gaze was steady. "It's time for them to see who you really are. You've tried to blend in, to keep your head down, but they've taken your kindness for weakness. We're going to remind them that you are so much more than they think." Over the next few days, Jonathan made discreet arrangements. He contacted the school's administration, explaining the situation and his plans for addressing it. He also reached out to local media and key figures in the art world, ensuring that Emily's talent would receive the recognition it deserved. Meanwhile, Emily poured her emotions into her art. With her father's encouragement, she created a series of paintings that reflected her journey, the pain of being misunderstood, the beauty of resilience, and the power of finding one's voice. Each piece was raw, vivid, and deeply personal, a testament to her strength and creativity. Jonathan knew that Emily's art had the power to change hearts, and he wanted the world to see it. He worked tirelessly behind the scenes, arranging for a surprise event that would unveil not only her talent but also the truth about who she was. The turning point came when the principal announced a special assembly to showcase student talent. Most of the students assumed it was just another routine event, and Lila and her clique barely paid attention as they filed into the auditorium. Emily sat quietly in the front row, her sketchbook clutched tightly in her lap. She knew what was about to happen, but the nervous flutter in her stomach wouldn't go away. When the principal took the stage, he cleared his throat and said, "Today, we're here to celebrate one of our own, a student whose talent and resilience have inspired many. Please join me in welcoming Emily Carter." A murmur of confusion rippled through the crowd as Emily stood and made her way to the stage. Lila exchanged a bewildered look with her friends, whispering, "What's going on?" As Emily took her place at the podium, her father appeared beside her, his presence commanding immediate attention. Gasps filled the room as students recognized him from the news and magazine covers. Jonathan Carter wasn't just anyone, he was a billionaire, a titan of the tech industry, and standing next to him was the girl they had mocked and belittled for years. Jonathan addressed the crowd, his voice calm but firm. "For too long, my daughter has endured cruelty and judgment from those who failed to see her worth. Today, we're here to celebrate her talent and strength, and to remind everyone that kindness and respect should never be optional." As the curtain behind them rose, it revealed a breathtaking display of Emily's artwork. Each painting told a story, capturing the pain and beauty of her journey with stunning clarity. The audience sat in stunned silence, their expressions shifting from surprise to awe. Emily signed her gratitude to the crowd, and Jonathan translated her words aloud. "Thank you for taking the time to see me, not for what I look like or how I sound, but for who I am." The auditorium erupted into applause, the sound echoing through the space. For the first time, Emily felt truly seen. The applause in the auditorium grew louder, a wave of sound that Emily could feel even if she couldn't hear it. She stood on the stage beside her father, the spotlight casting a soft glow over her and the display of her artwork. The same students who had mocked and dismissed her now sat in awe, their gazes fixed on the vibrant, emotion-filled paintings that told a story far deeper than words ever could. Jonathan Carter stepped forward to address the audience. His commanding presence silenced the murmurs of the crowd, and his voice carried a weight that demanded attention. "For years," he began, "my daughter has endured cruelty and judgment from those who failed to see her worth. But today, you will see her, not as a target of ridicule, but as a young woman with extraordinary talent, resilience, and courage." He turned to Emily and gestured toward the microphone. Though she couldn't speak, her hands moved gracefully as she signed her message. Jonathan translated her words for the crowd. "I've spent most of my life feeling invisible, like my voice didn't matter because it wasn't like everyone else's. But my art has always been my way of speaking. These paintings are my words, my feelings, my truth." The auditorium was silent as her message sank in. Emily pointed to one of her pieces, a striking portrait of a girl standing in the rain, her face turned upward toward the sky. "This is how I've felt, drenched by the world's judgment but still standing. Because I've learned that my value isn't determined by what others say about me." The reveal of Emily's true identity sent shockwaves through the school. For years, her classmates had seen her as a poor, awkward, and mute girl who faded into the background. But now, they realized she was the daughter of a billionaire and a gifted artist whose work spoke volumes. The same students who had jeered at her now looked at her with a mixture of guilt, awe, and regret. In the audience, Lila Hendricks shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Her usual confidence had evaporated, replaced by a sinking feeling in her stomach. She recalled every cruel word, every mocking laugh, and every time she had treated Emily as less than human. The weight of her actions pressed down on her as she watched the girl she had tormented stand proudly on stage. After the assembly, students crowded around the display of Emily's artwork, their voices filled with admiration. "I had no idea she was so talented," one girl whispered to her friend. "And her dad's Jonathan Carter? That's insane." Another student shook his head. "We've all been jerks to her. She didn't deserve any of it." Emily, still standing near the stage, felt a tap on her shoulder. She turned to see Lila, her expression hesitant and remorseful. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Lila's voice broke the silence. "Emily, I'm sorry. For everything." Emily studied her for a moment, her eyes searching for sincerity. Then she signed, "Why did you do it?" Jonathan, standing nearby, translated her question. Lila's face flushed with shame. "I don't know," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I guess. I thought it made me feel better about myself. But it didn't. It just made me a terrible person." Emily nodded slowly, her expression softening. She signed, "Apologizing is a start. But actions matter more than words." Lila swallowed hard and nodded. "I'll prove it. I promise." In the days that followed, the impact of Emily's reveal rippled through Riverside High. The bullying stopped almost entirely, replaced by an atmosphere of respect and curiosity. Students who had once ignored her now greeted her in the hallways or stopped to compliment her art. Though Emily was cautious about letting new people into her life, she appreciated the shift in how she was treated. The school administration also took action. Inspired by Emily's courage, they implemented new anti-bullying policies and created programs to celebrate diversity and inclusion. They even designated a section of the school's art wing to display her work, a lasting reminder of her resilience and talent. At home, Jonathan couldn't have been prouder of his daughter. "You've done something incredible, Emily," he told her one evening as they sat in their art studio. "You've shown them that strength doesn't come from shouting the loudest, it comes from staying true to who you are." Emily smiled, her hands moving quickly as she signed, "I couldn't have done it without you, Dad. You've always believed in me, even when I didn't believe in myself." Jonathan's eyes glistened with emotion as he hugged her. "And I always will." Though the world now knew who Emily Carter was, she remained grounded and true to herself. She continued to focus on her art, using her newfound platform to advocate for others who felt unseen or unheard. Her work gained recognition far beyond the school, and galleries began reaching out to feature her pieces. Despite the growing attention, Emily never let go of the lessons she had learned, that her worth wasn't tied to what others thought, and that her voice, silent though it was, had the power to inspire change. The days following the assembly were a whirlwind of change, not just for Emily but for everyone at Riverside High. The revelation of her true identity and her extraordinary talent had forced many students to confront their behavior, especially those who had bullied her. For the first time, Emily was no longer the invisible girl in the corner. Her classmates now saw her as a person of strength, resilience, and depth, a far cry from the caricature they had created in their minds. The shift was most evident in Lila Hendricks. Once the queen bee of the school and the ringleader of Emily's tormentors, Lila now found herself grappling with guilt and self-reflection. Her usual confidence was replaced by a quiet determination to make amends. She saw Emily out after school one day, her steps hesitant as she approached the art wing where Emily was working on a new painting. "Hi, Emily," Lila said softly, her voice stripped of its usual bravado. Emily looked up from her canvas, her expression unreadable. Lila hesitated before continuing. "I wanted to say I'm sorry again. I know I've said it before, but I mean it. What I did to you was cruel, and there's no excuse for it." Emily studied her for a moment before signing, "Why now?" Jonathan, who had taught her to always give people the opportunity to explain themselves, had once told her that redemption often started with genuine regret. Lila's face flushed as she replied, "Because seeing you up there, showing the world who you really are, made me realize how small I've been. I don't want to be that person anymore." Emily considered her words carefully, then signed, "It's good that you want to change. But actions speak louder than words." Lila nodded, her jaw tightening with resolve. "You're right. And I'm going to prove it." Over the next few weeks, Lila began taking steps to right her wrongs. She joined the school's newly established kindness campaign, an initiative inspired by Emily's story to foster empathy and inclusion among students. Lila used her influence to organize events, including an art fundraiser that featured Emily's paintings. She also reached out to other students who had been bullied, offering them the support she had once denied them. At first, many were skeptical of Lila's transformation. "Isn't she just doing this to look good?" some whispered. But as time went on, it became clear that Lila's efforts were genuine. She worked tirelessly, often behind the scenes, and never sought credit for her contributions. Emily noticed the change as well. Though she remained cautious, she began to open up to Lila. They started with small conversations, often about art or school projects, and gradually moved to deeper topics. One afternoon, as they painted a mural for the kindness campaign, Lila confessed, "You know, I used to be so afraid of being seen as weak. I thought that being mean made me strong. But I was wrong. You're the strongest person I know, Emily." Emily paused, her brush hovering over the wall, before signing, "It takes strength to admit when you're wrong and to try to do better. That's what you're doing now." For the first time, Lila felt a weight lift from her shoulders. "Thank you," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Emily's transformation from an outcast to a leader didn't just inspire her classmates, it also had a profound impact on the school as a whole. The administration, spurred by Jonathan Carter's involvement, implemented a series of changes to create a safer, more inclusive environment. They introduced workshops on empathy and communication, established a peer mentoring program, and designated a day each month for students to celebrate diversity and creativity. Emily played an active role in these efforts, using her art to convey powerful messages about resilience and understanding. She worked closely with the school's art teacher to create a permanent mural in the main hallway, a vibrant piece depicting students of all backgrounds united by shared dreams and aspirations. The mural became a symbol of the school's new culture, reminding everyone who passed it that kindness had the power to transform lives. As the months passed, Emily found herself surrounded by a growing circle of friends and supporters. Students who had once ignored her now sought her out, eager to learn from her example. Her newfound confidence shone through in everything she did, from her artwork to her interactions with others. Though she still preferred quiet moments in the library or art room, she no longer felt the need to hide. Jonathan, ever the proud father, watched his daughter's growth with awe. "You've become a force of nature, Emily," he told her one evening as they walked through their garden. "The world can see what I've always known, you're extraordinary." Emily signed back, "I just want to make a difference, Dad. Like you taught me." Jonathan smiled, his heart swelling with pride. "You already have." Even those who had initially judged Emily began to see her in a new light. One of her former bullies, Ben Carter, approached her after class one day, his expression sheepish. "Hey, Emily," he began awkwardly. I wanted to say I'm sorry. For all the times I was a jerk to you." Emily looked at him, her hands poised to respond. Instead of signing, she reached into her bag and pulled out a small sketch she had drawn, a picture of a bridge spanning a river. She handed it to him, a silent symbol of her willingness to move forward. Ben stared at the drawing, his throat tightening. "Thank you," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "I won't forget this." Emily's journey wasn't just about overcoming adversity, it was about showing others that change was possible. Her story inspired her classmates to be better, her school to evolve, and even her bullies to seek redemption. She had turned her pain into strength, her silence into a powerful voice, and her art into a beacon of hope. Emily's story, once confined to the halls of Riverside High, began to spread beyond the school's walls. The assembly where she had revealed her art and identity had left a lasting impression on the students, but it was the photos of her paintings, shared on social media, that caught the attention of the wider world. Her vibrant, emotional work spoke volumes, and soon, local art enthusiasts and journalists were reaching out to learn more about the talented young artist. It began with a small feature in a local newspaper. The headline read, "Silent Voices, How a Young Artist Turned Pain into Purpose." The article highlighted Emily's journey, her resilience, and her ability to communicate through her art in ways words never could. The story included images of her paintings, each one described in detail, and quotes from those who had witnessed her transformation. The article quickly gained traction, shared across social media platforms and catching the attention of influential figures in the art world. One such figure was Margaret Langston, the curator of a prestigious gallery in New York City. Margaret reached out to Jonathan Carter personally, expressing her interest in hosting a showcase of Emily's work. "Her art is extraordinary," Margaret said during a video call with Jonathan and Emily. "It's raw, authentic, and deeply moving. It deserves to be seen on a larger stage." Emily's eyes widened as her father signed Margaret's words to her. The idea of her work being displayed in a gallery felt surreal, but Jonathan's encouraging smile gave her the confidence to say yes. "I'll do it," she signed, her hands trembling with excitement. The weeks leading up to the gallery opening were a whirlwind of activity. Emily worked tirelessly to complete her collection, pouring her heart into each piece. The series, titled Unheard, depicted her journey through themes of isolation, resilience, and self-discovery. One painting, a haunting image of a girl standing on the edge of a stormy sea, captured the pain of feeling invisible. Another, a vibrant explosion of color and light, symbolized the joy of being seen and understood. Jonathan ensured that Emily had everything she needed to bring her vision to life. He transformed one of the mansion's unused rooms into a studio, complete with easels, canvases, and shelves of paints. He also hired an interpreter to help Emily communicate with the gallery staff and media during the event. The night of the gallery opening was a milestone for Emily. The venue was packed with art enthusiasts, collectors, and reporters, all eager to see the work of the young artist whose story had captivated so many. As Emily stood in the middle of the bustling room, surrounded by her paintings, she felt a mixture of nerves and pride. Jonathan stood by her side, his hand on her shoulder. "You've earned this, Emily," he said, signing the words for her. "This is your moment." One by one, attendees approached Emily to compliment her work. Many of them expressed admiration not just for her talent but for her courage. "Your art speaks volumes," one woman said. "It's like I can feel what you've been through just by looking at it." A reporter from a national news outlet asked, "What do you hope people take away from your work?" Emily thought for a moment before signing, "I want people to understand that everyone has a voice, even if it doesn't sound the way they expect. My art is my voice, and it's how I tell my story." Jonathan translated her words aloud, and the room erupted in applause. The gallery opening was a resounding success. All of Emily's paintings were sold, with a portion of the proceeds donated to organizations supporting the deaf community and anti-bullying initiatives. But more importantly, Emily's work had touched the hearts of countless people, inspiring them to see beyond appearances and embrace the beauty of individuality. Back at Riverside High, the event sparked a wave of pride among her classmates. Students who had once ignored or ridiculed her now spoke of her with admiration. Even the bullies who had tormented her found themselves reflecting on their actions and striving to do better. Emily's rise to recognition didn't change her humble nature. She continued to focus on her art and her studies, using her newfound platform to advocate for causes close to her heart. She spoke, through sign language and her father's translations, at schools and community events, sharing her journey and encouraging others to embrace their uniqueness. "I'm not defined by my voice," she signed during one of her talks. "And neither are you. We all have something to offer, something that makes us special. Never let anyone tell you otherwise." Her words resonated deeply, inspiring students and adults alike to look beyond the surface and value the strength that lies within. Emily's journey was far from over, but she had already accomplished more than she ever imagined. Her art had become a symbol of hope, her story a testament to the power of resilience. And through it all, she remained true to herself, a quiet, kind-hearted girl whose voice, though silent, was impossible to ignore. Emily's rise to recognition brought her new opportunities, but it also brought new responsibilities. She understood that her story resonated with people because it reflected struggles that many faced, being misunderstood, overlooked, or judged for their differences. Emily decided that she wanted her art and her platform to stand for something greater than herself. Her first step was establishing the Unheard Voices Initiative, a nonprofit organization dedicated to empowering individuals from marginalized communities. With her father's help, Emily launched programs that provided resources for deaf and disabled individuals, as well as workshops on anti-bullying and self-expression through art. The initiative quickly gained traction, with support pouring in from donors and advocates who believed in Emily's vision. At the heart of the initiative was Emily's belief in the transformative power of art. She hosted art therapy sessions in schools, community centers, and hospitals, teaching participants to express their emotions and tell their stories through painting, drawing, and sculpture. Watching children and adults alike find joy and healing in their creativity brought Emily immense satisfaction. One young girl, Sophia, who attended one of Emily's workshops, left a lasting impression. Sophia was 8 years old and deaf, much like Emily had been at her age. She had been struggling with feelings of isolation and frustration, unable to fully communicate with her peers. But during the workshop, Sophia's face lit up as she created a vibrant painting of a garden filled with blooming flowers. At the end of the session, Sophia approached Emily and signed, "Thank you for helping me feel like I belong." Emily's heart swelled with emotion. She knelt to Sophia's level and signed back, "You do belong. Never let anyone make you feel otherwise." Moments like these reminded Emily why her work mattered. She wasn't just creating art, she was creating connection, understanding, and hope. As the Unheard Voices initiative grew, Emily found herself in demand as a speaker at conferences and events. Though she was initially nervous about addressing large audiences, she embraced the opportunity to share her story and advocate for change. Her father often stood by her side, translating her signed speeches with pride. At a major global summit on disability rights, Emily delivered one of her most powerful speeches yet. "I've spent most of my life in silence," she signed, her movements deliberate and expressive. But silence doesn't mean absence. It doesn't mean weakness. It means listening, observing, and finding strength in other ways. "My art is my voice, and I hope it inspires others to find theirs." The audience gave her a standing ovation, and Emily felt a surge of fulfillment. She was no longer the shy, bullied girl hiding in the corners of the library. She was a leader, a change-maker, and a voice for those who felt unheard. Back at Riverside High, Emily's legacy continued to inspire her classmates and teachers. The school had undergone a significant cultural shift, thanks in part to the programs Emily and her father had helped implement. The kindness campaign was thriving, and the anti-bullying policies had created a safer, more inclusive environment for all students. Lila Hendricks, once Emily's greatest tormentor, had become one of the campaign's most dedicated advocates. She worked tirelessly to promote empathy and understanding among her peers, often drawing on her own mistakes as an example of how people could change. Lila and Emily's tentative friendship grew stronger over time, built on mutual respect and a shared commitment to making a difference. One day, as they painted a new mural together in the school's art wing, Lila turned to Emily and said, "I used to think strength was about being the loudest or the most popular. But you've shown me that real strength is about standing up for what's right, even when it's hard." Emily smiled, signing back, "And you've shown me that people can change. That's just as important." Emily's work didn't go unnoticed on a larger scale. She was honored with several awards for her contributions to the arts and her advocacy for the deaf community. Each accolade reminded her of the journey she had taken and the people who had supported her along the way, her father, her teachers, and even her former bullies who had chosen to grow alongside her. Through it all, Emily remained grounded. She continued to create art, finding joy and solace in the act of painting. Her work evolved to reflect the beauty she saw in the world, capturing moments of connection, resilience, and hope. She also continued her workshops and outreach efforts, ensuring that others could experience the transformative power of creativity. One evening, as Emily and her father sat in their art studio, Jonathan watched her work on a new painting. The canvas depicted a soaring bird, its wings spread wide against a backdrop of vibrant skies. "That's beautiful," he said, signing his words as he spoke. "It's like a symbol of everything you've become." Emily set down her brush and turned to him, her eyes shining. "It's not just about me," she signed. "It's about everyone who feels trapped and needs a way to fly." Jonathan nodded, his heart swelling with pride. "And you're helping them find their wings." Emily's journey was far from over, but she had already accomplished more than she ever imagined. She had turned her pain into purpose, her silence into a powerful voice, and her art into a beacon of hope for others. And as she looked ahead, she knew that the best was yet to come. Years later, Emily's name had become synonymous with resilience, creativity, and advocacy. The little girl who once sat silently in the library, afraid of the world's judgment, was now a global figure whose story inspired countless individuals. Her journey had left an indelible mark on the world, not only through her art but also through the lives she touched with her compassion and strength. The Unheard Voices initiative continued to thrive, expanding its reach to more schools, community centers, and underserved areas. The organization offered scholarships for young artists, funded inclusive art programs, and provided resources for individuals with disabilities to express themselves and connect with others. Emily remained deeply involved, traveling the world to oversee projects and meet the people her initiative was helping. At one such event, Emily met a young boy named Ethan, who was deaf and had been struggling with bullying at his school. Ethan's parents brought him to one of Emily's workshops, hoping that her story would give him the courage to face his challenges. As Ethan painted alongside her, his initial shyness gave way to a smile. At the end of the session, Ethan signed to her, "Thank you for showing me that being different is okay." Emily knelt beside him, signing back, "It's not just okay, it's what makes you special. Never forget that." Moments like these reaffirmed Emily's belief that her journey had a purpose far greater than her own. Her art, too, continued to evolve, reflecting the experiences and stories she encountered through her advocacy work. One of her most celebrated exhibitions, titled The Echo Within, showcased pieces that captured the silent yet powerful voices of individuals from diverse backgrounds. The collection included portraits of children expressing joy, women standing tall in the face of adversity, and abstract works symbolizing unity and understanding. Critics praised the collection as a masterful blend of emotion and technique, with one reviewer noting, "Emily Carter's art doesn't just speak, it shouts, whispers, and sings. It captures the beauty of human resilience in a way words never could." Despite her success, Emily remained grounded and deeply connected to her roots. She frequently visited Riverside High, where her journey had begun, and mentored students who were facing their own struggles. The school had transformed in her absence, thanks to the programs she and her father had initiated. The halls were now adorned with murals celebrating diversity, and the once toxic culture of bullying had been replaced by an environment of inclusivity and support. One day, during a visit to the school, Emily found herself standing in front of the mural she had painted years earlier. The image of students united by shared dreams and aspirations still resonated, a testament to how far the school had come. As she ran her fingers over the vibrant colors, she felt a hand on her shoulder. Turning, she saw Lila Hendricks, now a teacher at the school. "I never thought I'd end up here," Lila admitted, a sheepish smile on her face. "But after everything, I realized that I wanted to help kids the way you helped me." Emily smiled, signing, "You've come a long way, too." Lila nodded. "Thanks to you." Emily's father, Jonathan, remained her steadfast supporter and biggest fan. Though he had always believed in her potential, seeing the impact she had made on the world filled him with pride beyond measure. On her 25th birthday, he surprised her with a heartfelt gift, a custom-made book filled with photos and stories from people whose lives she had touched. As Emily flipped through the pages, she saw messages from children who had found their voices through art, families who had been inspired by her journey, and individuals who credited her with giving them hope. By the time she reached the last page, tears filled her eyes. Jonathan placed a hand on her shoulder, signing, "This is your legacy, Emily. It's not just in your art or your success, it's in the lives you've changed." Emily hugged him tightly, her heart full. "I couldn't have done any of it without you, Dad. Thank you for always believing in me." As Emily looked ahead, she knew her work was far from finished. She continued to pour her heart into her art and her advocacy, always striving to make the world a little brighter for those who felt unseen or unheard. Her story had become a beacon of hope, a reminder that even the quietest voices could make the loudest impact. In interviews, Emily was often asked what motivated her to keep going. Her answer was always the same: "I create because I believe in the power of connection. I speak through my art because I want people to know they're not alone. And I keep going because there's still so much more to do." Emily Carter's legacy was one of love, resilience, and transformation. She had taken the pain of her past and turned it into a source of strength, using her voice, silent but powerful, to inspire change and uplift others. And as she continued her journey, she carried with her the unwavering belief that even the smallest spark of kindness could ignite a world of difference.